Avid viewers will remember that not long ago, we reported that John Bercow announced his resignation as the Speaker of the House of Commons, effective from the 31st of October. There was speculation that Bercow would remain in the role for a little longer, as Parliament is about to be dissolved for the election. However, Bercow stuck to his original promise, making yesterday his last day. That means that the new Speaker is set to be selected on Monday. So, in this video, we're going to look at Bercow's final Prime Minister's questions, what he's being praised for, and Bercow's thank yous. Before we get into his last day in the Speaker's chair, a quick plug for our Bercow-related merchandise. Bercow has always been a fan favourite in this Brexit saga, and as such we made a shirt featuring his iconic order and a design for his most recent quips. If you want to grab either of these designs or any of our other merch, you can find that on our Teespring store. There's a link down below. Anyway, on to the video. With Bercow resigning this week, Wednesday was Bercow's last Prime Minister's questions, and a lot of MPs took time to thank him for his time in the chair.
Order. Questions to the Prime
Mr. Speaker, I know the whole House will want to join me in recording that after 10 tumultuous years, this is your last Prime Minister's questions. And as befits a distinguished former Wimbledon competitor, you have sat up there in your high chair, and not just as an umpire, ruthlessly adjudicating on the finer points of parliamentary procedure with your trademark Tony Montana scowl, Mr. Speaker. Not just as a commentator, offering your own opinions on the rallies you are watching, sometimes acerbic and sometimes kindly, but above all as a player in your own right, peppering every part of the chamber with your own thoughts and opinions, like some tennis ball machine, some uncontrollable tennis ball machine, Mr. Speaker, delivering a series of literally unplayable, unreturnable, formally unreturnable volleys and smashes. And although we may disagree about some of the legislative innovations that you have favoured, there is no doubt in my mind that you have been a great servant of this Parliament and of this House of Commons. You have modernised, you have widened access, you have cared for the needs of those with disabilities, and you have cared so deeply for the rights of backbenchers that you've done more than anyone since Stephen Hawking to stretch time in this particular session. And as we come to the end of what must be the longest retirement since Frank Sinatra, Mr. Speaker, I'm sure the whole House will want to join me in thanking you and hoping that you enjoy in your retirement the soothing medicament that you have so often prescribed for the rest.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I hope you will indulge me one moment while I say a word about you. I'm sure you will. I want to thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the way that you've used your speakership in the decade-long tenure you've had. You've done so much to reform this House of Commons, and our democracy is the stronger for the way that you've done it. You have served for 10 years, you've given real power to backbenchers, vastly expanded the use of urgent questions, which has been overwhelmingly popular with all government ministers, and opened up the number of emergency debates, which is even more popular with even more government ministers. And in the traditions of the great Speaker Leinster and others, you've stood up for Parliament when it has to be stood up for, and I think we thank you for that. Because you've also carried that message internationally as well in the role of parliamentary democracy and parliaments holding governments to account. And as we hope to form a government in the future, we hope to be held to account by Parliament as well. And the way in which you've used your office, Mr. Speaker, to increase diversity amongst the staff in the House and make this a much more LGBT-friendly place. You've taken it away from being a gentleman's club that happens to be in a royal palace to a genuinely democratic institution.
Despite some clear jibes from Johnson and Phillips, there was generally a positive mood in Parliament. Johnson took the opportunity to make some digs at Bercow, pointing out how long he's been saying he would resign for.
What must be the longest retirement since Frank Sinatra, Mr. Speaker.
As well as how he's chosen to manipulate parliamentary procedure.
Although we may disagree about some of the legislative innovations that you have favoured.
Phillips, while praising Bercow's parenthood, made reference to Johnson's questionable record in that area.
It's a delight to see your children here watching today, because I know that while you have a responsibility to Parliament, that you take your responsibilities as a parent incredibly seriously also. And now to the Prime Minister.
There were more positive remarks from many other MPs, but if we included all of those videos, it would just be a big old Bercow love fest, which some accuse our videos of being ordinarily. If you do want to see all these clips, they can be found in a separate video. There's a link down below. Also, after the remarks, Bercow thanked the House, but we will save that for the end of the video. We've got to keep up the view time. Bercow may have spent 10 years in the Speaker's chair, but he's been in Parliament for way longer. Back when he used to be an MP, Bercow was a pretty right-wing Conservative, but he has slowly shifted further left, especially in relation to Brexit. This has led him to become way more popular with the Labour Party than his own party. But he's been controversial for more than just his political opinions. Bercow has been accused of bullying by staff and MPs. His tone with MPs, often giving fairly substantial dressing downs to MPs whose behaviour he doesn't agree with. This has led some to questioning his sometimes condescending techniques.
Led by Jeremy Corbyn.
We don't name people in the chamber. People must... No, order! Order! Order. I am simply and politely informing the Prime Minister of the very long established procedure with which everybody, including the Prime Minister, must comply. And I'm setting out the position, and no one, be he ever so high, is going to tell me what the procedures in the chamber of the House of Commons are.
Even recently, some have criticised how slowly these allegations have been handled, accusing some of letting Bercow get away with it until he resigns. Despite these criticisms, he's been faced with some very turbulent times. Few speakers have had to deal with such complex political times, and handling Brexit is something he's always been able to do with relative ease. While some might disagree with this action, he's clearly attempted to get Parliament's voice heard in difficult times. That's why many MPs thanked Bercow for allowing MPs, especially backbenchers, to get their voices heard.
You've always been very assiduous in protecting the rights of backbenchers and smaller parties, and we thank you for that and wish you well in your retirement.
He has done this by holding the government to account, forcing them to face emergency questions from MPs. These emergency debates have allowed MPs to call the shots and get answers from the government when Parliament believes that they are necessary, rather than when the government wants to. He has also worked to open up Parliament and to make it more accessible to visitors, as well as increasing the work Parliament does in education.
Well, I also think, and I'm sure the whole House would agree with me on this, you've done excellent work in opening up Parliament to visitors, exhibitions and children, and you've reduced some of these strange customs and strange garments that people wear in this building. And it's all right, it's all right. I know you're all jealous of my tie, but it's okay.
People have very firm views on Bercow, whether they view him as an eloquent moderniser of parliamentary knowledge or as a controversial speaker who wants to force his own way and even resorts to bullying. Either way, his time as Speaker is over, and it's time for someone else to take over that seat. All other speakers have automatically received peerages after stepping down from the Commons, leading them to sit in the House of Lords. However, it's reported that Bercow might be about to embark on a speaking tour of the US. This is actually a surprisingly common route for former UK politicians. The Washington Speakers Bureau has Brown, Blair and David Cameron on their books, and with the former Chancellor George Osborne earning over £140,000 from 2 speeches to JP Morgan, it's easy to understand why. As I mentioned earlier, Bercow finished Prime Minister's questions by thanking MPs and others.
Would like to thank the Prime Minister and colleagues for their kind and generous personal remarks, which are greatly appreciated. I want to thank staff of mine, past and present, who have given of their time to be here today for the last Prime Minister's question that I chair. All of them are people who've worked with me for a significant period of time. We've had fantastic relations and a terrific bond, and I hugely appreciate the fact that they've bothered to turn up on this occasion. And in particular, again, I want to thank my wife, Sally, and our 3 children, Oliver, Freddie and Jemima, for the support, stoicism and fortitude which they've displayed through thick and thin over the last decade. I'll never forget it, and I'll always be grateful for it.
So, this is the end of the Bercow era. He's been in Parliament for 10 years, and regardless of your thoughts of him, his changes have been fundamental and modernised Parliament. For more news and politics as it plays out, be sure to subscribe to the channel.
You can also hit the bell icon if you want to be notified every time we release a video. And if you want more from us, you can find TLDR across all social networks simply by searching for TLDR News. And if you want your name featured at the end of the videos, just like these people, then you can sign up to back us on Patreon. There's a link to that in the description.